Hello, Internet, and thank you for joining me today. Just for everyone's reference, I am not going to be editing this video or this audio. I'm going to try to record it in one long take here because I have like 6 things to do, and this is not one of the highest priorities, but I want to strike while the iron is hot. That all being said, I guess they called it the Odyssey because depressing people getting their shit ruined would have been really hard to market and put on a poster. Now, I just recorded and made a video just like this yesterday talking about all the controversies surrounding this movie, but I went and watched it, and so I'm going to give my just kind of first thoughts here. Like I said, we're doing this all in one kind of long take here, so I'm going to quit vamping and just jump right into it. So, what did I think of the Odyssey? Well, I'm not going to summarize the story, because if you need a spoiler warning for the Odyssey, then you're approximately 4,000 years too late. But anyway, for what it's worth, the Odyssey is the story of Odysseus. He's this great guy from the Trojan War. He fought for Greece, and he's trying to get home to his Greek country of Ithaca. Along the way, he gets messed with by a bunch of gods, and it takes him forever. And the Odyssey is the chronicling of all of his journeys and all of that good jazz on his way home. Now, this is a classic piece of Greek art that has been passed down throughout the time. And now we have Christopher Nolan putting his stamp on it. And what kind of stamp is it? Well, immediately off the bat, to kind of give you a tip of the hat, I did not care for this movie. I will not be watching it again in the near future, and that's mostly because Nolan really kind of seems like he didn't get to put his stamp on it at all. This feels very generic by Christopher Nolan movie standards. It does have some of his Nolan-isms, like the story's non-chronological, and he's trying to make things seem a bit more epic, even though what's really happening in the scene isn't all that epic, in my opinion. That's something he likes to do. Don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of Chris Nolan. I love a lot of his movies, and I watch most of them multiple times. This is just not going to be that one. And I really just feel like he didn't get the opportunity to make the movie he wanted to make. This really feels like a studio movie that, you know, a bunch of producers and a bunch of people in boardrooms had a bunch of say in. And that's coming a lot from the stunt casting that was done. I'll get into that here in a second, but I covered it in my last video. Go watch that if you want more details on that. But I'm going to go ahead and use this as a bridge to talk about the characters. The characters, for those concerned right off the bat here, the DEI hires that you were all concerned about have a collective screen time of like 7 minutes. That's what most people are reporting. I didn't count the minutes, but their appearances are very brief. And as far as how I would rate their performance, it's honestly really awful. Like, they are clearly the worst acting. It's like they were the worst directed in the whole movie. Specifically, Elliot Page, whose role is greatly exaggerated from the book. And what I said in my last video holds true, that this 5'2" person is not going to give me the gravitas. It looks so out of place. Like, it's so clear that you are there for your identity and not for your performance and your abilities. And there's barely any performance there, because the first scene that we see him, he dies. You know, the character dies immediately. It's the opening scene of the movie. Spoilers, don't go watch this movie. Even though I'm going to give it a recommendation at the end, let me get there. Anyway, so Elliot Page just... there was no time given to them, even though the character is expanded upon from the book by a lot. Like, I think it's like a passing thing that, you know, because I'll get into this more in the story, but the Odyssey itself, like as an epic poem, is crazy long. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in it. And Sion, I can't remember the name, is like such a minor part of the story. But in this movie, it's given a lot of prominence as like a through line. But that doesn't mean that Elliot Page is on screen. That doesn't mean that Elliot Page is conveying any of this. No, everything has to go through Matt Damon, who I'll get to. And before I move on, just a quick thing. Lupita Nyong'o, again, she's in it so briefly that it does not matter. Her performance is stale for the couple of minutes of screen time that she has. Like, she has like 6 lines. So there's really nothing for me to base off of. But it did just seem out of place. And I'll get to that in my story portion. Let me get through the rest of these. So everyone in the cast just seems weirdly low effort. It's like they were all told that this is a very sad story. I mean, the color grading in the movie is actually really harsh and like dark, and not in a good way. I think that when Nolan did this in The Dark Knight, it really worked because everything's set at night. You know, it's black on black, right? But the Odyssey is not supposed to be that. You're out on the open ocean, and it looks like you're in Gotham City. The whole movie just looks washed out, and the fact that there's very little to differentiate places, again, I'll get to that in just a little bit, but the fact that you can't differentiate between places really does a disservice to this movie. But the characters, the standouts for all the wrong reasons, in my opinion, are John Leguizamo and Tom Holland. They really give quite bad performances. I call out John Leguizamo mostly because he just seems like such a weird fit. He just doesn't fit in with the rest of the movie, because at one minute he's like this wise old mentor, and then the next minute he's this blind beggar man, and then the next minute he's like a co-conspirator. He doesn't have a consistent character, which is it hits him the hardest. This is a problem for many characters, but it hits him the hardest. And Tom Holland, he just I am convinced that Tom Holland can't act anymore. He's just Spider-Man. That's all he will ever be now. He's just Spider-Man forever. Just cast him as Spider-Man. He's okay as Spider-Man. I don't mind him as Spider-Man. But in here, he really just looks, again, out of place. There are so many things that look like they fit. For example, Robert Pattinson, even though he's doing his damnedest to act like he can't act, he still looks like he belongs. Penelope, Anne Hathaway, she looks like she fits. But Tom Holland and John Leguizamo just stick out like sore thumbs here. Robert Pattinson's role's really small. I only feel like calling him out because he's a big actor. I'm a big fan of his. He's done amazing work. And while I'm at it, let me go ahead and call out Zendaya, because holy crap, she was flat as hell in this entire movie. Calypso, who should have played Helen of Troy here, it would have made a ton more sense to fucking switch Lupita Nyong'o with whoever played Calypso. I can't remember off the top of my head, and I'm trying to get this out quick. Anyway, it would have made way more sense to switch those two actors around. But Calypso does okay. She's fine. Mia Goth is in this movie. She doesn't do a whole lot other than play off of Robert Pattinson's flat acting. But I do want to mention her because every time I mention her, my penis gets a little bit happier, and because I want her to step on me and tell me I've been a bad boy. But moving along, like I said a little bit earlier, Anne Hathaway, she's probably the best actor in this movie, but she is so much better than everyone else in this movie that it kind of took me out of the movie, because it's like, wait, hold on. Is this the tone that we're setting? Because she seems to be giving 110%, whereas Nolan told everyone else, try less. That was the note. And then, of course, the supposed main character here is Matt Damon. And I'm actually going to use him to transition here into the story criticisms. And that's an excellent transition for, a shitty video that's just based on a few notes that I took. But it really is kind of a microcosm of the entire movie, because Odysseus is that perfect distillation of this movie. And when I say that, what I mean to say is that this is a square peg in a round hole. The modern values it's trying to push do not translate to an ancient Greek story, much like ancient Greek values don't translate to our modern Western sensibilities. For example, I mentioned earlier that all of the sets kind of blend together and every location looks the same. That's 100% true. It really comes out in the colorblind casting that they did, because on Odysseus's ship, he has Asians, he has sub-Saharan Africans, he has Italians, he has essentially everyone that doesn't look Greek. It's crazy. And like, Matt Damon does his best, but he doesn't look Greek either. He doesn't speak in a way that is Greek. And that's really one of the things that is my biggest gripe about this movie. My biggest gripe, I'll say that here, is that the dialogue written in the movie, half of it wants to be this epic Lord of the Rings-esque fantasy, right? Where everything they're saying is supposed to be dripping with meaning. But the other half of the script is all entirely written as though it's taking place in New York. And it creates this weird dynamic where in one scene, we'll go minute to minute where it's this great Greek epic, and then we're going to go into this sad modern melodrama about the nature of war and blah, blah, blah. And then sometimes it tries to be a high fantasy adventure in there. Like, the inclusion of magic and the gods really struck me as a bold choice that was made by the filmmakers, specifically Nolan. And it's like he wanted to have his cake and eat it too, because all of the stuff with the gods could be explained as natural phenomenon and just attributed to gods. But then it's explicitly stated that the gods are messing with him. It's so weird. It creates this dynamic that I can't follow, because the tone of your movie is all over the place. And again, it happens within the same scene. So I can't get invested in your characters or your story, because your story is constantly changing. And not in a good way, like there's development and whatnot, because the unfortunate thing is that the Greek storytelling doesn't lend itself to the story that they wanted to tell. Specifically, I'm trying to get this all out in a very hasty fashion, so forgive me if this is a bit disjointed. But the character of Odysseus in the original Greek text is essentially the perfect hero from the get-go. He is Superman. He can do everything. He can do anything. Everyone loves him. Everyone respects him. He is the ultimate Mary Sue. Okay. However, in most Greek storytelling, there was heroes like this because they had to be translated through oral tradition. And as such, these characters tended to be boiled down to their simplest parts. So by the time it got written down by Homer, 4,000 years ago, that's the Odysseus that everyone has known for the time that it has existed. And it's existed for a long time, and people have found a lot of meaning within the character of Odysseus. And this really comes down to just a problem of adaptation, because the Odyssey, the movie, is long. It's like 3 hours long, and it's a slog to get through because everyone's so sad. Everyone's just essentially repeating stuff and saying things that they are thinking because we don't have the time for them to go on all of their adventures as well as develop as characters. The book can be as long as it wants. The movie has to be a certain length because he insisted on shooting in IMAX, meaning he was limited to those 3 hours. So we're trying to fit, 20 pounds of shit into a 5-pound bag because the source material for this is long. That's part of the reason that I haven't reread it. I remember enjoying it, but I also remember it taking me like 3 months of just studying that text in a literature class some almost 20 years ago now. And this movie just doesn't give me what I wanted from the Odyssey. If you want to change the names around and say it's based on the Odyssey, right, I would be more okay with that. But when you call it the Odyssey, I have an expectation set, and you're not meeting that expectation, Mr. Nolan. Now, all of that said, I still think that you should go see this in a movie theater because the technical side of things is actually kind of impressive. It's not so bad. Like, I have personal gripes with it, obviously, but it's not so bad that you can't enjoy it. I can imagine some people actually enjoying this movie. It's just that I can't because I see all these glaring issues. But yeah, my recommendation is that if you think like me, don't go see it. It's not going to be worth your time. But if you don't think like me and you think I'm dumb and you've somehow made it through 17 minutes of a video with me rambling about it, yeah, go see it. It's probably going to be right up your alley. But anyway, those are just my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Like, share, and subscribe, all that good YouTube stuff. And until my next review, sayonara, bitches.